Hi everybody, Richard Tromans here at Artificial Lawyer TV. Today we're talking to Laura Bygrave, who is the Head of Innovation and Ventures at Deloitte Legal, the big four accountancy firm, which has branched out into legal and many other areas. Hi Laura, great to have you on the show.
Hi, Richard. Thank you for having me. Really excited to be here.
Well, I think there's a lot of interest in what Deloitte is doing and the Big Four in general. And I think one of the headline projects that you announced last year, and I believe it's just about a year ago now, was Ventures. Which involved a whole bunch of legal tech companies and others coming in and engaging with Deloitte. And it wasn't quite an incubator, and not quite sure exactly how to describe it. But first of all, let's just define what was and what is Deloitte Ventures for legal?
Yeah, that's a really good question. And I think now that it's been a year, it's good to reflect on what was the original challenge that we were trying to solve. So when I started at Deloitte Legal, it was really clear that the access to and adoption of technology within the legal sector was lower than other industries. And I think it was for a number of reasons, but in particular because lawyers don't always have the breadth of skills to adequately evaluate technology, engage with startups, or then support the products. And I don't think that was helped by the overly complex buying and partner processes, which often delays lawyers, both internally within Deloitte Legal and our clients, actually getting their hands on the products to test and use. So I really wanted to change this, firstly in creating transparency in that buying process and simplifying it. So really simple things like it not taking 6 months to get a proof of concept contract in place. And also by introducing clear metrics at that proof of concept stage. So we use VenturePath within Deloitte, so measuring three key things. So is there demand, is it feasible, and then is it viable to scale? And then the other thing that I really wanted us to be able to do is utilize our multidisciplinary expertise from across Deloitte. So assembling experts from different parts of the firm to really support that evaluation, to support the lawyers through use of ventures, through consulting, strategists, digital. We had such a breadth of expertise that we should utilize to help the legal sector progress. And from that sort of hypothesis, I thought that combination would accelerate the development, the onboarding, the uptake, and usage of legal tech, both internally and with our clients. So when we set out this time last year for cohort one, we took a really broad approach to sourcing the companies. So we chose not to limit our reach by inviting applications. We then prioritised our business challenges that we wanted to go out into the market and scan the companies for. And then instead of inviting the applications, we hand selected those 14 that at that time their product, team and focus was really aligned with our future strategy. Albeit Deloitte Legal is a very different place, a much bigger place than it was at this time last year. So when we were looking at the companies, we wanted to ensure that they all had scalability potential. So that's sort of some of the context, and then what actually happens in practice. So we always start as the customer, so we do a proof of concept with any startups that join our cohort, and then depending on the feedback, we measure a lot of things which I can talk about later. We then progress the relationship to a partnership, so things like co-development of solutions, minority investment, potentially acquisition of talent or the technology, because as you scale up the relationship, it really helps you sort of assess the team dynamic and the skills, as well as the product before you put it in front of clients, which I think is one of the key differentiators to the other legal incubators and accelerators you mentioned, because they don't affirm buying decisions up front. So that's sort of the area that we're most different.
Gotcha. And how many people, how many groups, how many companies came on? It was more than a dozen, if I remember, was it? How many came on?
Yeah, it was 14 for cohort one.
Right.
And for all of the 14, we'd give them sort of early stage feedback. We've mentored a number of them. Then for some of them, we've got much more involved relationships. So we've done proof of concepts that have then scaled up both within the UK and internationally. We've invested in one of the companies, Conception X, to support their growth, alongside Barclays, who invested a couple of years ago, which we can talk about. So we've done things across the whole spectrum.
Interesting. So, and I must admit, I don't know much about Conception X. Well, what do they do?
That's a very good question. So Conception X is it's a program for PhD students where they take deep technologists from any sector and then they try to turn them into venture scientists. So commercializing their research within specific industries. Because really interestingly, PhD students often apply for their PhD without an application area for their technology. So they're working on cutting edge tech, but they don't know how to take it out to market, which is where we came in alongside Barclays. And we work with the students. So we sponsored the program, which was now open to universities across the whole of the UK for the first time. Before that, it was just in UCL. And then through a 9-month program, we work with the students to try and commercialize their ideas, not just within the legal industry, but across all areas of Deloitte. So since we set the relationship up in February this year, we've done a variety of things with the cohort. From a legal perspective, we put to them a number of legal industry challenges that we couldn't solve in-house because they were too technically complex for us. We don't have the R&D capabilities. And also we wanted to solve them in new ways because these were challenges that hadn't been solved in many years. So we needed fresh thinking from PhD students to do that. So to give you some examples of the challenges that we solved with them, from a legal perspective, we looked at using entity data for insights to automate and do health checks on client entities and automate recommendations. So to get much deeper using publicly available and client data blended together with lawyers. So really bringing together that multidisciplinary approach that I spoke to you about. One of the other challenges, and I think this has been a bugbear across the legal industry for years, was in particular where you analyze contracts. So machine learning is great at picking up sort of specific clauses or terms. What it's not very good at is picking up or identifying dates, particularly where they aren't defined. So for example, in a contract, it might say the termination date is 5 years from the start date. And then a lawyer's got to go in there manually and try and understand, well, what date is that? And then do the analysis to make sure that it all works. We're working with deep tech machine learning students to work out, is there a way that we can isolate those and do those calculations automatically so that lawyers just have to verify those rather than do that manually. So really simple, but problems that if we could solve, it wouldn't just change the legal industry, it would change contracting across all businesses globally. So they're really valuable problems that hopefully these students can work with us to solve. In terms of what's come out of it specifically, from a legal perspective, we've created 2 new client propositions that we're actually testing with clients at the moment. So we'd love to be able to tell you more about, but I think is one for a future interview where we can go into a bit more detail as to how they work. Both are very data focused, given the students' expertise in AI, machine learning and data analytics.
Oh, awesome. Sounds very exciting and good to see something tangible coming out of it and practical. Just going back to the legal tech companies who you onboarded, and there are quite a few of those. Are there any, you've mentioned there's different levels of engagement. Can you name any at the moment that you've sort of taken forward and really worked with and perhaps whether you're using internally and also perhaps you're kind of, I don't know what the correct term is, reselling as it were, or promoting to your own client base? Anything happening there?
Yeah, so probably the best way to describe it is that within ventures, we look at things in 3 ways. So the first is where we use technology to drive efficiency and enable optimal legal services to our clients. So within that area, one of the companies that we've very publicly worked with is a tool called Define. So when we worked with them, they hadn't, whilst they had access to other law firms, they didn't have a corporate customer on board. So we were their first customer. And we give them a lot of feedback as to how the tool worked and areas that we would like to see additional features in, which have now been sort of co-developed in conjunction with our lawyers' feedback. We're actually in the moment beta testing the next version based on some feedback and ideas that we've suggested. So we scaled that usage up across our corporate and commercial team, and we're now looking to scale up further globally. They've just fundraised, and very publicly announce that and have some great investors on board. And I always kick myself because I feel like we should have been bolder and been one of those investors, but we know there's always next time to find another version of Define. So that's the first area where we're looking at efficiency. The second area that we've sort of tangibly done things is technology consulting to clients to try and enable them to optimize their legal functions and sort of respond to new challenges. So one of the companies that we've worked there with is Brighter. So as part of our COVID-19 response, we wanted very quickly and cheaply to test the hypothesis that we thought clients might be struggling with cash repatriation and liquidity in their business. So we built a tool that had access to 20 jurisdictions, tax and legal guidance, and we put it out publicly for free to just get some feedback to see whether this was something that clients and the market cared about. And since we did that so far, I think we've had 2,200 users that have accessed this tool. And you can see from that it's really helped us shape what that looks like next. So we're looking at additional jurisdictions, we're looking at sort of additional use cases off the back of it that clients can pay for and get access to deeper information. So that's been a really successful and beneficial sort of exercise to get that feedback from.
Absolutely.
And then the third area that we focused on in the first year of Ventures is that co-creation, which to me is personally the most exciting part. So co-creating digital legal solutions with our clients to enable sort of tech-based legal solutions that don't say advice, because the whole ethos of Deloitte Legal is taking comprehensive solutions to clients. So bringing together the different capabilities across the firm, and particularly now that we've got Emily, who joined us recently to lead our managed service team, and Jack, who's leading our management consulting team, being able to blend those capabilities with our lawyers, with our tech, is really differentiating how we're going to market. So some of the propositions that I mentioned have come out of Conception X around our data for insights work, our contract calculation work. There's a couple of others that, watch this space, will be announced shortly.
Fantastic. Well, you've been very, 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 very busy. So just briefly, you've just got a couple of minutes left. So, I mean, it looks like you have done something substantive. It has had an impact. It has been a success, which is great to hear. What happens next? Do you know, I mean, as you know, most incubators operate on a sort of annual basis or 6-monthly basis. Are you going to say thanks to everybody, see you later, let's have a whole new cohort coming through? What happens there?
That's a really good question, and it's something that we've been looking at, particularly in light of COVID, because we need to be more agile. So rather than running a fixed cohort, what we're now doing is, where there's a qualified business challenge, and we qualify our ideas through that venture path methodology, what we then do is we take them immediately into the cohort. So there's no fixed entry, there's no applications. It's just when our business or our clients have got a problem, we bring them in. So we're actually about to admit, I think, 2, potentially more new startups to the cohort that we're working with in different areas that we haven't had served previously. So that's one area we're looking at. The other area that we're also exploring as part of year 2 is how we scale up across the global Deloitte Legal network, because interestingly, just from the launch and sort of some of the sort of internal publicity that we did around the program, we had clients across 9 countries reach out to us and want to sort of test their problems with us. They had sort of solutions that they needed to develop but didn't know how to go about it from a sort of consultancy perspective. And all of those things combined meant we made the Deloitte firm-wide impact report for 2020, which again has created additional demand in the market across 3 continents actually, which is really, really exciting. So we're thinking about how we scale up so that for the startups that we choose to support, we don't just have a UK relationship, but we can expand that across our jurisdictions as well.
That's a very interesting point, isn't it? Because obviously, you know, you're in the UK, I'm in the UK, and even though we operate kind of globally, but you know, you do tend to have a kind of US UK kind of mindset, and you know,
Yeah.
but of course, it's a big world out there, isn't it? And it's, I mean, do you feel that other parts of the world are, I don't know, how does it feel? Does it feel that they are just exactly on the same page as we are? They're catching up. They're further ahead. What's
Yeah, it's a really good question. And I think it depends which sector the startups are in, because actually some of the companies we've worked with aren't legal tech startups as such. They're
Mm,
just solving a clear problem, industry agnostic. So we have sort of sourced a lot of our companies coming out of Silicon Valley, particularly from incubators such as Y Combinator or other programs. We get a lot of interest from companies that aren't focused on legal but want to work with us to see whether they could apply the tech to the legal industry, which again I think is slightly different than some of the other incubators out there that are purely focused on sort of legal solutions. What we're seeing though is everyone wants to solve similar problems and they're going about it in slightly different ways. So what we're trying to do from a global perspective is connect those people so that rather than a point solution, you have something that solves the problem end to end. So to give you an example, one of the new cohort members that we're looking at, we introduced them earlier this week to one of our previous cohort members and suggested that they blend their tech together because that would be hugely beneficial, not just for us, but for the whole market. So we're trying to sort of maximize the collaboration where we can as well.
when you say blend, you mean so they do APIs, or you're saying, hey Bob, why don't you merge with Mary, or
Yeah, a variety of things. So APIs are always the simplest.
no.
Some of these companies, I think, though, if they're all looking at the same challenge from three different angles, and if they did look at bringing it together, I think they would have really comprehensive solutions. So we're trying to give our expertise in those areas, given that we're not just a team of lawyers, we've got the expertise from across the firm to sort of help them in their direction as to where they go next.
Yeah, no, that's interesting. Doing a bit of M&A really. I mean, it's true. I mean, there are so, for example, take a classic one, document automation.
Yeah,
Every system is slightly different. People go, oh, they're all the same. The truth is, if you once you look at them, they're all just a little bit different. They
yeah,
have certain elements. Some are heavy on legal design. Some have got a little bit of NLP added in. Others connect to a CLM system. Others don't.
yeah.
And you're like, you're all kind of there, but not there at the same time. It's
Yeah, I completely agree. And do you know what's really interesting? One thing that I'm always interested to see solutions that think they sort of solve the problem better than the predecessor. What I find really interesting is a lot of those solutions all have similar drawbacks. I want to find the companies that fix the drawback or sort of solve the problem no one has yet been able to solve. That's what we're really looking for.
fantastic. Well, on that high note, let's leave it there. Thank you very very much for your time, and congratulations on the success of the Ventures project. We'll have to have you back very soon to hear more. But anyway, thank you very much, Laura.
Perfect. Thank you.